I'm Robyn Popa. I'm the managing principal for Pfluger Architects San Antonio. And today I'm joined by Nicole Franco. She's the leadership development principal coach at Northside ISD.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What prompted you to choose this career and how did you get here today?
Well, as a girl growing up, I was the nerd that took home the leftover worksheets and played school. And I grew up knowing I was going to be a teacher. Growing up, you see other women in that position that you admire and you think, I want to emulate that. I want to be that. And I knew what the teachers in my schools did for me. And so I wanted to carry that forward. I was teaching one day and the principal that I was working for, a very strong female leader, came in with a sheet of paper and said, you need to fill out this opportunity for a scholarship to become a school administrator. And I was like, oh, no, not me. I love teaching. I was teaching freshman English and I really loved it. And she was like, you can have a bigger impact. I think you should fill out this application. And so I finally told her, just to kind of shut her up, I said, okay. I said, I'll fill it out. And if I get the scholarship, then I'll go forward with getting my administrative certification. And if not, then I'm happy right here with my kids. And lo and behold, I got the scholarship and began the journey of becoming an administrator.
That's wonderful. So I imagine along that journey, you've probably faced quite a few challenges. So why don't you tell us about maybe a couple that you've encountered and how you got over those?
Every time you take a leap into your next level in your career, you're going to face a challenge. I think as women, sometimes when we get into leadership roles, we might have sort of an imposter syndrome where we're like, am I good enough to be here? Can I do this? And I could feel the support of the women that had paved the way before me and mentored me. When you get higher into leadership in education, you begin to see that the women appear less and the men appear more. Just realizing that I was at the table and had a right to be there and had a voice at the table. So that overcoming my own fear and my own imposter syndrome was probably the biggest obstacle. I think the next one was being okay as a leader, not having all the answers. And that's just something you learn as you get through the leadership role, is being a vulnerable leader and telling folks, you know what, I may not know the answer, but we're going to find it out together, or looking to the other people on your team that are strong and have strengths in different areas. Really helped to overcome obstacles that we faced really together, but then also built me as a leader.
That's great. I think we do see a lot and hear a lot about women who are advancing in their career. There's a lot of self-doubt that's intrinsically ingrained into us. And trying to overcome that, I think, is something that's kind of something we're all challenged with. Yeah. So, but I also do really appreciate your feedback on recognizing that sometimes the most powerful leaders are the ones who realize that they don't have all the answers.
Absolutely.
You fill the room with people who are smarter than yourself to achieve the greater good.
Absolutely.
So why don't we talk a little bit more specific and tell us about a particular defining moment in your career and why it was so significant for you?
So something that stands out and really lasted over multiple years was I was the principal of a high school in district here in San Antonio, and we were going through a name change that became very politicized. And it was something that the county was also facing when we talked about statues and historical landmarks. And I quickly realized as a leader, I had a decision to make. And it was, how was I going to keep my students and my staff safe, as well as really implementing a process and an expectation that we continue with our mission, which was to educate our students. I could not sway my mission as a leader of a high school and be other people's political pawn. And so really that was the biggest challenge. What I'm most proud of is in the years of that transition, we took that high school as a team from a D to a B on our state accountability. We just kind of defined that this was our house and no one was coming in, and we were going to make our mission for us to be successful and competitive, and we did.
So when you talk about leadership today, how do you define being a leader? And what do you think are those leadership qualities that are most important for a woman to have specifically?
Oftentimes, if you're a strong female leader, you might be described as being, we'll say the B word. If you're a male strong leader, then you're considered a strong leader. I would define a leader as being someone who is vulnerable and finds a team that supports them and brings the strengths that they don't have. I also think as a leader is someone that brings people along with them and doesn't drag people behind them. Someone paved the pathway for me, and I want to make sure I'm paving the path for people behind me. And then also finding leaders in people that maybe don't consider themselves leaders. So that's a good leader in my book.
So let's talk a little bit about mentorship, and tell me a little bit about how mentorship has played a role in your professional journey, and maybe about a specific woman who has been a mentor for you.
I would go directly back to the principal that encouraged me to be an administrator. As you go through your career, interestingly enough, all of my mentors have not been women. And I think you learn as much from the leaders you work under, what you want to be as a leader, as much as you learn what you don't want to be as a leader, right? And you have to forge your own leadership style. I think that's the thing about leadership is you should always be stretching yourself to an uncomfortable position. I think that's how we see organizations, in our case, campuses and student success grow. As we stretch, we think outside the box. We're not afraid to try new things. And we're certainly going to fight for what we believe in.
That's great. So I know we've known each other for a few years, and I've always admired the way that you build up your community around you. And so that really is talking about empowerment. So can you talk to me a little bit about not just how you empower those around you, but also how you empower yourself?
So I've actually made a friend in just working on professional development for myself and for others. And many people that will see this will know Ann Grady, and she talks about the shitty committee that we have in our head. And honestly, it works. And so Ann, thank you if you're reading or watching this. But we all have, whether you're male or female, but women tend to have a bigger one. You have a shitty committee in your head that it tells you all the things that you're doing wrong or that you perceive you're doing wrong. And honestly, it's telling yourself you are enough. And I think that's what I always want to tell women is you're enough. You're enough. Get the shitty committee out of your head. Find people who are going to build you up and support you and that you can be vulnerable with.
Well, so I think the notion of a shitty committee is...
I think women can relate to that. Everybody has it in their head. Whether you're getting up in the morning and you're like, oh, it's a bad hair day, it's a bad clothing day.
Well, and I think also women probably are a little bit more challenged with that when it comes to balancing the work and the family aspect, especially. Yes. So tell me a little bit about what kind of legacy you hope to leave in your career.
I feel like it sounds very cliche, but I do want people to say, man, she came in and made this place better and she changed the lives of kids. I think one of the things that I get most proud of is when a student will call 2 or 3 or 4 years later and find me and reach out.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's what I want people to remember.
That's awesome. If you could drum it down to one thing that you want anybody watching this series to kind of take away, what would that be?
Work hard, but give yourself grace. I don't think any leadership position is going to be handed to you. You have to work hard and you have to earn it. And you may have to work harder than the person next to you to get it. And that's just the female part of being a leader. And when it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen.
That's great. So you always knew you wanted to be a teacher when you were little.
Always.
Is there anything that you miss about not being in the classroom now and now being in the quote unquote central office?
Oh, 100%. I miss my kids. I miss having my own little group of kids. And like I think about today, the day before spring break, how we'd be crazy, but I'd be trying to find some fun stuff for us to read or to do or still get them to learn. But yeah, I miss the kids.
Did you have a favorite grade level that you taught?
Freshman English was such a quirky little group of kids. You know, they were still scared enough coming out of middle school that they listened to what you asked them to do. You know, in high school, you get 4 years to send a kid off to be an adult and start adulting, and they're going to go down one path or the other. And I felt like if I could catch them as a freshman, that was my chance to get them on the right path.
Awesome. What do you like to do for fun? How do you relax?
I love to travel, but when I can't travel, then I'll be in the backyard gardening by my pool.
Wonderful.
I've always lived in San Antonio, Texas, born and raised. And so I, at some point in my life, want to live in another country.
Oh,
yeah.
Any country in particular?
I've got a few on the list, and having recently traveled to Italy, that's definitely one. But I would be willing to live anywhere near a coast.
Ah, okay. All right. And then you have a very unique bumper sticker on your car. So would you tell us a little bit about it and why you have that?
Sure. So my bumper stickers, it's on my back window, and it says, "Well-behaved women rarely make history." And, there was a time and a place where my grandmother would have had me sitting proper and prim and not asking hard questions and not being the loudest voice in the room. And I realized quite early that if you were going to be a strong leader, that you might have to misbehave once in a while, but you were going to make history and make the changes that need to be made.
Do you find that makes you a target more for police officers?
I think my speeding makes me a target.
Well, thank you so much for sitting with us today.
Thank you so much.
I've just enjoyed it so much.
Thank you.